Hello, everybody. This is Alejandro, and welcome to Friday night. Hope everyone's doing all right. This is going to be our first fall semester spaced out podcast episode. I'm going to be your host for the next certain amount of minutes. I didn't really time it when I put together the topics list, so let's just go ahead and jump in. Let's see. Everyone, as you guys come into the comments, just say hi. I'll be monitoring the chat thread and making sure that the video is still there. And other than that, so let's go ahead and jump in. First topic of the day. Let me bring it up here. Gosh, I have like 15,000 tabs open. All right. So first topic of the day is going to be NASA's TESS mission. So today, actually, a paper was published with findings from earlier this year from the TESS telescope, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite. So this satellite, let me open it up here. Let's see. All-sky survey mission that will discover thousands of exoplanets around nearby bright stars. So it basically uses data to find transiting exoplanets as they pass in front of the star. And in this case, it was used earlier this year to spot the first ever documented case of a black hole shredding apart a star. So what happens is that the star passes too close to the actual, the black hole, and the tidal forces induced by said black hole rip it apart. It's super cool, lots of high energy physics type stuff involved, but yeah, let me see. Yeah, 1 meter telescopes. It was confirmed by a whole bunch of 1 meter telescopes using from the ESA, European Space Agency, as part of the Assassin project. It's kind of weird, but Assassin stands for something. Let me just open it up here. There we go. The Automated Survey for Supernovae, and it's a giant project of, I think, 20 plus different telescopes around the world that watch for these kinds of things. And as you can see, we just discovered it. So, super cool. And just for your information, the star, when it gets shredded up, it'll turn into the accretion disk around the black hole. And if you remember things like Interstellar, you have the accretion disk, which actually throws off a lot of light. So accretion. So yeah, it'll get shredded up and turned into this stuff around the black hole, which gives off light. As you can see from earlier this year, the first released photos of a black hole, and that's what gives off the light. Obviously, you can't see the black hole because, well, it's a black hole, so, no light. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic of discussion. Oh, hi, El Neen. Let's forget that's there. This one's kind of all over the news. You don't really need to know too much about what's going on to have heard about this, but yeah. So SpaceX, as you guys probably know, is trying to take humans to Mars, all that fun stuff, and to do it, they're going to be building something called Starship. It's about 180 feet high, 30 feet in diameter, or 9 meters, for those of you guys who use metric, and it's designed to take somewhere north of 150 tons to low Earth orbit, and eventually about 100 tons of people, supplies, machinery, all of that to the surface of Mars. And as you can see, this is the completed stack for Starship Mark 1, currently being built in Boca Chica, Texas. And this is not necessarily the final version, but it will be testing all of the technologies that they're going to be using. So these fins right here, this one, that one, and that one, they're all able to move, and when the ship is coming in, it'll be using those as kind of air brakes to maneuver itself through the air as it goes through the re-entry profile from orbit all the way down to the ground. Let's go here. At the bottom, within this section right here, you're going to have eventually 6 rockets, specifically the Raptor type rocket, being shown off here in these photos. Each one produces 440,000 pounds of thrust, and let's see, it can gimbal too. They're very, very capable of gimbaling, and as you can see, we have Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, down here. He's super active on this thread just because, this is huge. Each one runs off of a methalox mix, so liquid methane and liquid oxygen. Most of you guys might know that, or some of you guys might know that the current Merlin engines run off of Keralox, which is kerosene and liquid oxygen. This is running off of methalox simply because it's easier to manufacture on an extraterrestrial base. Mars has a lot more building blocks for methane versus creating kerosene. And if you guys want to research that a little bit more, it's referred to as, and I know I'm probably going to butcher this name, but Sabatier process. The Sabatier reaction, where you take carbon dioxide and hydrogen, you add pressure and temperature, and you get methane and then water. So this process can be used to not only create the fuel for these engines and for this rocket, but also some water for the actual colonists once they're on the ground. And of course, that these Raptors right here, this whole tweet storm by Elon is very, very long with lots of different answers, both vague and not really that vague, about what he's doing, and specifically referencing the fact that he's going to be doing a presentation tomorrow at around 6 to 7 p.m. in Boca Chica, Texas. It'll be live streamed on SpaceX's website. He's going to be explaining their design decisions for the spacecraft. They're going to be explaining what they plan to use, these Mark 1 and Mark 2 prototypes. The Mark 2 refers to the second version of this, which is currently sitting in Cape Canaveral. And as you can see, here are the insides of those Raptor engines. Really, really cool. We just saw one propel Starhopper, the Starhopper prototype, up into the air about 500 feet and then come back down again in Boca Chica. So yeah, this is going to be super cool. 3 of them on the Mark 1 prototype. We're probably going to see, as they create more prototypes for these starships, they'll be putting on vacuum optimized Raptors, because rocket engines need to be optimized for which environment they're going to be used in. So as you rise up in the atmosphere, obviously there's less pressure, which means that the pressure differential between, say, out here outside of the rocket nozzle and inside the rocket nozzle will cause the plume, the reactants coming out of the engine, the gas, to expand a lot this way, right? Actually, let me just pull up. I didn't know I could shop for vacuum optimized engines. So yeah, this is actually something for the Big Falcon rocket, what the Starship was originally known as. And you know what? Let's do vacuum optimized Merlin engine. That might be a better one. So you have the normal Merlin, which is the one that actually is being used on Falcon 9, 9 of them specifically. Falcon 9, right? Yeah. And this is the normal sea level optimized rocket nozzle, and then, here's a very nice graphic. So at sea level, the pressure differential causes this plume to be kind of come off of the nozzle, and as it rises, it'll start adhering to the nozzle more, and that means that you're getting the most amount of force from this plume expanding onto the rocket nozzle, and that'll make it more efficient. It's optimized for that altitude. But then as you go up, you see that obviously the plume is going to expand once it gets out of the nozzle because it's a vacuum up in space. So what they do is, instead of having normal rocket engines, I don't know if it's, yeah, this may be the size. Yeah, instead of having a small rocket nozzle, they'll just add on a gigantic rocket nozzle like this. And that'll mean that the plume has more time to expand while it's within the nozzle, thereby optimizing the amount of force you get on that nozzle, and thus the push that you get to push the spacecraft into orbit. So yeah, back on topic. These sea level optimized Raptors will be the ones that are going to be used on this Mark 1 prototype, the Mark 1 and Mark 2. Eventually, once these Starship prototypes start to get into orbit, you're going to see 3 more or 4 more ringed around these 3. And they'll have larger nozzles, and I don't believe that they're going to be able to gimbal, but they will be positioned around the rim, and that'll give it better efficiency once it's in or on orbit, on its way to Mars, circularizing around Mars, and then they'll use these sea level optimized Raptors for the actual descent once it gets into Martian atmosphere. Obviously, Martian atmosphere is less than 1% of the density of Earth's atmosphere, so you might as well use the vacuum optimized engines, but these are the ones that will be able to gimbal, as you can see here. So they'll use those. And then here's another article about it. The stack just happened today. He posted it on Twitter, and it's really, really cool. Can't wait to see the presentation tomorrow. It was supposed to be stacked, I believe, on Wednesday or Thursday, but they kind of slipped in terms of schedule. Then again, this entire thing didn't exist 2.5 months ago, so when you say the schedule slipped, it's, that's kind of hard to explain, especially in this kind of aerospace industry where you have NASA and other contractors that push out schedules for years in advance, and SpaceX comes along and poof, there you go. But the day wasn't not everyone was super happy about it. I wouldn't throw out this much of a sensationalized let's see. Actually, Angel side video freezes on your end. Let me check if okay, just a problem with your computer. Okay. Good. Sorry guys, I'm looking at the chat right now, making sure that everything's going good. Anyway, back to the article. Yeah, I wouldn't use this much of a sensationalized title. But NASA's chief, Mr. Jim Bridenstine, put out this statement. I am looking forward to the SpaceX announcement tomorrow. In the meantime, commercial crew is years behind schedule. NASA expects to see the same level of enthusiasm focused on the investment of the American taxpayer. It's time to deliver. I don't know if I would call... I mean... Just from a personal point of view, I do feel like that's a bit of a cloaked kind of jab. I mean, obviously for PR reasons, they're not going to say, oh, SpaceX, get your act together for Commercial Crew. But I mean, we can all understand the actual explanation. I don't know if it's in this article or if it's in another article, but another NASA official said that this wasn't referring necessarily as a jab to SpaceX, but more as a reminder for contractors to meet their contract requirements. And obviously, that's going to be what they say this means. But I mean, it pretty specifically refers to, or it pretty specifically mentions SpaceX's name. So obviously, Boeing and SpaceX have been having issues in terms of their Commercial Crew deployments for the Boeing CST-1000 Starliner, as well as SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft. And that was the topic of this specific commission/report, the Government Accountability Office report to Congressional Committee about NASA Commercial Crew. So this entire study, I'll link it in the in the description below, but this study is pretty much all about why NASA's Commercial Crew has been severely delayed. I believe that we were supposed to have Commercial Crew actual spacecraft flying. Let's see. Quarterly progress. I believe we were supposed to have Commercial Crew up and running by like 2017, but then it slipped to 2018, and now it was supposed to be by the end of this year, but we don't really know. At least on Boeing's side, they're saying that it may be pushed back again to 20. Here it is. The schedule here. SpaceX current proposed certification date in September of 2019, so this month. Proposed certification date under review. This was sent out June 2019, so a couple months ago. And I believe that now Crew Dragon's first flight with people on it, the Crew Demo 2, is supposed to be scheduled as no earlier than November. Let's see. And we don't know if that's actually going to stick. Obviously, they're not going to announce it until it gets a little closer. Boeing here, the current proposed certification date is January of 2020. Haven't heard too much about that, so that might get delayed again. So here we have the administrator of NASA wanting to have Commercial Crew be prioritized with all of this news about Starship. And, everyone's going to have their different opinions and stuff like that. Well, actually not an opinion, but there are different priorities. And, the entire industry as a whole is going to be watching for that announcement tomorrow. Commercial Crew, while it is very, very important, is of course a government project and is subject to a lot of delays. So we don't know. Either way, this Starship event is going to be very, very cool and very important, at least in terms of a milestone for SpaceX at the very least, if not for humanity as a whole. And I'll definitely be watching with bated breath as they talk about their plans for sending everybody to Mars in this giant monstrosity of a rocket. Just a little bit of more information. This is, yes, made out of stainless steel. They bolted this together, as I said, in about 2.5 months or so, 3 months. And it's got fuel tanks and everything. And they also, I probably won't link it in the description below, but earlier this week, photos were released of them putting in here. I can't zoom into the photo. Photos were leaked where they were putting Tesla batteries, like actual car battery packs, into this area up here, into the nose cone, which is pretty cool. And then we'll also hopefully get some information on how they're going to gimbal these fins, just because of the sheer amount of force that it'll take to move these fins against hypersonic airflow as it's re-entering the atmosphere, both here on Earth, or over Earth, and over Mars. So that'll be super cool to see. Anyway, that's a little bit too much. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic of conversation, which will be Ariane 6. And let me see if I can bring that up. There we go. All right. So, Ariane 6 is the next generation rocket for brought by Arianespace and operated by the European Space Agency. Previously, they've been using Ariane 5, propelled by 2 solid rocket boosters and then a singular Vulcain engine. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but it's a cryogenic main booster, the Vulcain 2. Okay. And so it's got a liquid fuel center booster with 2 solid rocket boosters on the side, and it's been used for a little while now. Let's see, the first flight was 1996 for the G class. Interesting. I didn't know that there were different variants. So it's been in service for quite a while, so they're going to replace it with the Ariane 6 sometime next year. First test flight scheduled for 2020, and this specific news article pertains to the fact that they just finished qualification tests for their Vulcan. I'll just use Vulcan 2.1 liquid-fueled engine. It says here that it'll do 135 tons of thrust, propel it for about 8 minutes of flight up to 200 kilometers. And it's been tested, static fire test campaigns over the course of 15 months. And this last qualification static fire lasted almost 11 minutes, specifically 655 seconds. And this concludes almost 13,800 seconds of operation, or nearly 4 hours of controlling the engine. Wow. That is a lot of test fires. Test fires are pretty useful in the aerospace industry. SpaceX test fires their rockets. Basically every single one of their rocket engines is tested before actually flying. They have that done over at McGregor, Texas, a few minutes outside of Waco. And of course, you can just search it up. Basically every booster, including the ones that have already been flown, are pre-tested there at McGregor. They have also some testing going on for Raptor, but that was previously. Now they're just going to probably test those as they come out of the factory over at McGregor and then send them straight to Boca Chica or Cape Canaveral. But anyway, back to Ariane 6. So yeah, this is the new European Space Agency rocket, and I don't know if it'll include reusable features, because we know that SpaceX and Blue Origin, or at least SpaceX right now and then Blue Origin in the future, will and have demonstrated reusable rocket technology with the Falcon 9 and then eventually with New Glenn. And this is for orbital rockets. Of course, you have Blue Origin running their New Shepard basically every few months. Hopefully they'll be able to do some tourist operations soon. Anyway, so I don't know if they'll have reusability in mind for Ariane 6. I think I heard in the grapevine quite a long time ago that they may be using some kind of glider setup to just save the bottom section in the engines. I'll probably go into that in another spaced out episode. But let me go ahead and check. All right, so the stream is doing well. And just checking the stream before we move on. So let me go ahead and move on to the next topic here. going to be ULA. So let's go ahead and bring that up. Also, feel free to bring up any topics that you want covered in the comment section below. I'd love to see if you guys want to see anything or anything like that. Anyway, back to the news broadcast. We have here from Yellowhammer News that the United Launch Alliance, a collaboration between Lockheed and Boeing, have just finished off a pretty busy week over at their Decatur facility, Decatur, Alabama specifically. This is where they build their rockets and then ship them out for launch. So at the facility, they did two major things, or a few major things here. So they rolled out an Atlas rocket booster over to their new ship, which is called Rocket Ship. Interesting name. But yeah, so this new ship, let me just go ahead and bring it up. It doesn't have a picture there. Yeah, see, this is a weird name. So yeah, this is actually a boat called Rocket Ship. And there doesn't seem to be a place to get a larger photo. So yeah, we'll just use that photo then. This is their rocket ship, and it carries their boosters from their Decatur production facility over to Cape Canaveral, the West Coast, over at Vandenberg, all of that. And this is because obviously these rocket boosters can't really be transported over the road, or at least they don't want to transport it over the road. Sorry for the noise outside. These rocket boosters, they transport over the ocean, kind of like the external fuel tank that NASA used to use for their shuttle. And yeah, they just renamed their boat, and then they also moved their new Vulcan Centaur qualification booster from one side of the site. Oh, I don't want to do any noise there. Yeah, they moved their Vulcan Centaur qualification booster, Centaur, over to another part of the facility for structural testing. So Vulcan Centaur, just to give you some insight. So Vulcan is going to be their next generation rocket. So you have Ariane 6 coming from ESA, but you also have ULA coming out with this Vulcan rocket. And Centaur refers to this second stage, which is also being used currently on the Atlas rocket. This center stage is very, very efficient, very, very useful, and has been a legendary addition for their launches for a very, very long time. But the more important part right now is the booster area. So this section right here is all new, and it includes the BE4 Blue Origin sourced engine. And let me just go ahead and confirm. So the BE4 engine, yes. So this is another Methalox engine that they're going to be using for this Vulcan, and they're also going to be using this BE4 on the New Glenn rocket, which will be Blue Origin's kind of competitor for both for the Falcon Heavy. It carries about 70 tons into orbit, so it doesn't really compete with the Falcon Heavy because Falcon Heavy only does about 50 tops, 55, and so here it is. This is the New Glenn rocket. It doesn't necessarily reach Starship levels of low Earth orbit capability, but it surpasses Falcon Heavy. So it's kind of a middle ground between those two. Super heavy rocket, of course, and yeah. So they're going to be using those engines on the new ULA rocket, and hopefully, yeah, first launch in 2021. So we'll start seeing those fly in a couple of years, and hopefully is on schedule. I mean, other than like 10, 15, maybe 30-second videos, we haven't really seen much of the BE4 engine. We've seen a lot from the BE3 that is put on the new Shepherd. Yes. And then, yeah, New Shepard has been flying a lot, and that has the BE3 engine, which doesn't operate on Methalox. But with that, we need to actually see some video. I would like to see some video of some of these rockets actually functioning, of recent years. But then again, Blue Origin's super secretive. They don't really need press because they have the Amazon piggy bank from Mr. Bezos to pull from, so they don't really need to sell contracts. So we'll see that up and running in the next couple of years, and along with the BE4, hopefully we'll see New Glenn finally launch. And definitely congratulations goes out to ULA for getting all of their stuff together and putting together this new Vulcan Centaur qualification booster. Looking forward to see that first fly in a couple of years. So let's see. Moving on. This week is pretty cool for the International Space Station team over at NASA. So they just launched Expedition 61 on a Soyuz MS-15 rocket on the 25th. So that was... There we go. Wednesday. They launched these 3 astronauts. NASA astronaut Jessica Meir. Hello. Selected for the NASA class of 2013. She's flying on that rocket. And then we have Oleg Skripochka. Yep, of the Russian space agency Roscosmos. Here we have him. He's a veteran of the space station. He's gone on, let's see, 2 Russian EVAs as part of Expedition 25-26, 47-48, and now he's going to be on 61-62 until spring of 2020. And then finally we have the United Arab Emirates' first ever astronaut, Haza Al-Mansouri. I apologize if I butchered that name, my bad. So he is the first ever person from the United Arab Emirates to fly into space, and he will stay there for 8 days aboard the International Space Station. Let's see. It says here that he joined the armed forces, so he's a military pilot, and of course that's not too out of the ordinary. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of pilots in the space program. That's super cool to see. It says that he's a space flight participant, so that probably I believe that means that he isn't going to be doing any on-orbit operations that are maybe scientific specific or maintenance specific. He's just going to be there to monitor and as kind of an experiment by their space agency to see, okay, so we can actually put someone into orbit. This is what we need to do to train, yada, yada, yada. So something else pretty extraordinary about this mission is the fact that the addition of these 3 crew members for the next few days increases the orbiting laboratory's population to 9 people. So some of you guys may be familiar with the space station's operations. Usually there's about 6 people on the space station. But this time around, they're actually going to have a full 9. And this is the most amount of people that they've had since 2016. Let's see. Yeah. 2015, when Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko's year-long mission was going on. So lots of people on the space station, much more than usual. So that's pretty cool for the team and pretty awesome to see that we're putting more people into space for extended periods of time. Whoop. And then along with that, you have some other projects that are going on, including a radiation protection vest that NASA is testing out for the Artemis moon program. So that's going to be super cool. Details are right here, linked, of course, from the main article about the launch. This vest is developed apparently by Lockheed in conjunction with a company called, let me see where it is, Steamrad from Israel. So these guys are going to be working together to create a vest as a protective piece of clothing for when you go on long duration missions. They refer to it as cislunar for Artemis missions and maybe even further out. Who knows? Maybe a mission to the Lagrange points. Once James Webb actually launches and say we need to go see it and fix it. Hopefully not. Knock on wood. God help us all. This kind of vest would be used on that kind of mission. So yeah, super cool for the United Arab Emirates to be getting in on the space game. Awesome to see some more people up there. The sheer size of the crew, and then hopefully this will continue and we get more people, especially with commercial crew coming online later on, probably this year and or next year. The next crew return, MK Nicole 2, is going to be, I believe, let me go ahead and reopen that. I don't want to say, I think it's going to be in 8 days. When Mr. Al-Mansuri comes back, he's going to be coming back in 8 days, so he's going to be returning on probably Expedition 60's. 8 days between the trio's arrival and the departure of the Soyuz MS-12 spacecraft. So I'm guessing that refers to Christina Cook, Nick Hague, and Andrew Morgan's. All of these guys. One group of them arrived with just 2 people on board, and probably Expedition 60. So, and you know what? Let me go ahead and confirm that. Expedition 60. Let's see. Oh. So, lots of people for Expedition 60. Everybody currently on the space station minus Mr. Al-Mansuri. And also the ESA's. Oh, wait, no. She's there. So, who isn't included? Oh, well, whatever. Either way, they'll be returning on the 3rd. Expedition 5960. So, yep, 8 days. Or, no? Less than 8 days. What? Okay, whatever. Yeah, next mission return is going to be on the 3rd. So, yay. Okay, next topic. And just extra stuff. The spacecraft docked with the Russian docking module, Zvezda. So, it only took 4 orbits, too. That's kind of cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and see if we can get through these next couple ones. NASA announced a new set of programs and partnerships through the Tipping Point program. And something, you guys can go through this. Basically, it's just a whole bunch of contracts for different companies to develop technologies in cryogenic propulsion or propellant production and management, sustainable energy generation, storage, and distribution, and propulsion system design, autonomous operations, rover mobility, advanced avionics, and that's it. So, yeah, lots of contracts were approved and sent out, one of which was sent to Blue Origin, $10 million worth to develop a ground demonstration of hydrogen and oxygen liquefaction and storage, representing rocket and spacecraft propellant that could be produced on the moon. Interesting. Probably for some lunar lander, probably the Lockheed one. I don't know. Then you have SpaceX getting in on it with $3 million there. Skyer Incorporated of Connecticut with $2.6 million. Oxeon Energy of North Salt Lake, Utah with 1.8. And then some cool stuff going on with energy generation and storage, etc. Definitely kind of interested in this propulsion systems here. Axion Systems with $3.9 million. First interplanetary CubeSats. Pretty cool. So yeah, lots of contracts. Super cool. NASA trying to put out the money for people to use. Of course, links in the description below in a little while. On to the next topic. So this goes back to the International Space Station. I'll just read the headline here. Russia says it will keep source of hole and air leak on Soyuz secret, but NASA wants to know. So this goes back to that hole that was discovered in 2018 by the International Space Station's crew, and it specifically goes back to the report on that was sent by Russia, and specifically the part in the report where they say, we know what went wrong. We're just not going to tell you guys. That's not verbatim, obviously, but that's basically what they said. And, of course, this isn't, just, oh, dang, someone poked a hole, my bad. No. This is, pretty big, because it's a 2-millimeter hole in what is supposed to be a very airtight piece of machinery that also happens to cost north of $150 billion. So, of course, or obviously, Mr. Jim Bridenstine and NASA pretty much as a whole, and basically everybody involved in the project of the International Space Station, is kind of just scratching their chins and giving Russia the evil eye and trying to say, tell us what the hell's going on. Because, you don't just hold back this kind of information. And we'll just go back to the original article from here in the Houston Chronicle. This was published back on the 19th, so last week, and it just says that Mr. Bridenstine told the Houston Chronicle that they have not told me anything. I don't want to let one item set the relationship back, but it is clearly not acceptable that there are holes in the International Space Station. Here, seconded. Oh yeah, I don't understand why Russia is holding it back. Probably related to the fact that they've had a few high-profile failures in the last year and a half, 2 years, what with this hole, and then their production difficulties that they've had, and then of course the not on-pad abort, but mid-launch abort that they had, I believe, earlier this year. Okay, October of 2018, they had the rocket abort scenario that narrowly took the lives of two astronauts. I believe one Cosma and one astronaut from NASA. And it's not, something that you can just sweep under the rug, obviously, when you have a giant rocket explode mid-flight. So they're probably trying to keep this hole and the cause of it under wraps to keep speculation about their processing and manufacturing techniques, under the radar. And, and this kind of feeds into the whole idea of NASA should get out from under the contracts with the Soyuz program and Roscosmos as a whole in terms of launching, because we need some other ride to the space station other than something that may or may not have holes in it, or at least that's kind of the logic behind this. And then, so NASA pays Russia $82 million a seat, which is a lot of money. $82 million. That's a lot of money. So, and we just actually renewed our contract with them because, again, referring back to those delays in commercial crew, we don't actually have another ride. So, got to have Boeing and SpaceX make their rockets very, very quickly. So, hopefully we get to know what happened. People like Mr. Bridenstine here and the rest of NASA are going to be pushing on Roscosmos to release those pieces of information. And then once those pieces of information come out, they'll put out press releases, and hopefully we'll get people like Scott Manley and Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, to tell us what is going on in normal people speak. So yeah. Anyway, let us move on to the next one. Another very, very interesting development. Let's see. Yes, we are going to slam something into an asteroid. Whoop. So later next year, we're going to be launching a rocket with a piece of metal on top. Or sorry, July of 2021, we're going to launch a rocket with a piece of metal on top, half a ton of chunk of metal, and we're going to launch it towards 65803 Didymos, I don't know, which is this asteroid. So it's a near-Earth object, part of the Apollo/Amor group of asteroids. Here's a picture. I probably won't link this in the description. You guys can probably search that up later on, but I'll link Technology Review's article on it. But yeah, so this asteroid is currently orbiting in this kind of area around Earth's orbit, or this kind of area around Earth's orbit. This is the Amor asteroid group / ring, and then Apollo asteroid group / ring. So we're going to launch this thing towards this asteroid, and after 16 months, DART, which is the name of the experiment, Double Asteroid Redirection Test, it's going to slam into Didymos, at 14,700 miles an hour. And let's just get this out of the way. That's really fast, obviously. You're moving half a ton of metal at 14,700 miles an hour, which is not necessarily orbital speed for Earth, but it will be reaching that speed at point of impact, which means that at launch it'll be much faster as it goes, and it'll scrub off speed, of course, due to gravity, as it goes towards the apoapsis of its orbit, where it's the quote-unquote slowest velocity. That gets into orbital mechanics. Either way, it's going to crash into the asteroid, and on its way, it will be testing a couple different technologies. NASA's evolutionary xenon thruster commercial, which is their evolution of the design of the engine system, a propulsion system that was used on the Dawn satellite, launched over a decade ago. That was the one that visited Vesta and Ceres, and then it will also be using something called SmartNav, the Small Body Maneuvering Autonomous Real-Time Navigation system. Yeah. They really like their acronyms. So SmartNav will be a new form of navigation for them to be able to for each satellite to autonomously navigate itself to another object. In this case, a small body. So asteroids, small moons, stuff like that. Let's see. And then ESA, the European Space Agency, is also going to get in on this using something called Hera, but it won't launch until 2023. And it will include 2 CubeSats that include their own propulsion systems, and then they'll be testing out another form of another navigation system that'll get them to the asteroid. So, super cool projects. Here is a brief from actually the European Space Agency about the Hera project, and the DART project as a whole. Here's a nice graphic, and yeah, so all of these will be in the description later on. So, last couple articles we're going to get to today are the Toyota Moon Rover. So this is a bit of an old article. It's from July of this year, but I found it earlier today, and I thought that was super cool. So basically, Toyota is building a rover for Mars, for Japan. Whoop! And what they're going to do is, let's see, it'll have a range of 6,200 miles, and that's pretty big, as this article states, considering the moon's circumference is 6,700 miles. So you're going to get from basically one side of the moon all the way around, and then like end up 500 miles from your start point and run out of gas, so to speak. It's going to be a pretty big rover. So the length is going to be 6 meters, so give or take about 20 feet, 22 feet, I think. Yeah, about 20 feet in length. Oh, yeah, 19.5. See, I can't read. I'm blind. So 5.2 meter width, so 17 in America units. And then you have a height of 3.8 meters, or 12.4 feet. So I'm going to just say that's big. That's really big for a rover. I mean, 20 feet, obviously a Chevy Silverado. So Chevy Silverado, long wheelbase. Well, actually, no. Let's use an SUV. I don't know. I'm having a huge brain fart. Chevy Tahoe. Yeah, let's go with that. So Chevy Tahoe size 204 inches. No one asked for the inches. Come on, man. Whatever. All right, let's bring up that calculator then, because I'm not going to do this on the fly. 204 inches, so 204 divided by 12, so 17 feet long, about 6.5 feet tall, I think. 81 divided by 12, yeah, 6 3/4 foot tall, and about 6 feet high, or sorry, 6 3/4 wide, 6 feet high, so, or 6 feet 2 inches. So this will be significantly bigger. Well, 2 feet longer, 2.5 feet longer, and then significantly wider, over almost 3 times as wide, and then over twice as tall. So it's going to be pretty damn big. 6 wheels, and of course it makes the Apollo moon rover look like a go-kart in terms of size, and I guess accommodations. So you'll have an enclosed area inside, kind of like the or kind of like the Martian rover in the movie The Martian. So that'll be super cool. They have a nice promo video. They'll have a schedule for fiscal year 2019, 2020, and 2021, and it'll be provided for JAXA, the space agency from Japan. Let's see. Manufacturer performance and quality testing of the flight model in 2027. So let's say that this won't be flying and on the moon until probably 2020, the very, very late 2020s, if not early 2030s. So it'll be cool to see. Hopefully we can get on the moon earlier, but finally we'll have large cars on the moon, or in this case, vans. I guess if Volkswagen makes a van rover, does that mean that we're gonna have a Volkswagen van on the moon? Oh man, if they don't market it like that, I'm gonna be so mad. But yeah, all right. The last article for today is gonna be astronomy, from astronomy. Yes, it's all astronomy, right? We could feed 1 million people living in colonies on Mars. Yeah, so big problem in terms of colonies is actually sustaining colonies. You're not going to be able to, live there for years and years just off of the food supply sent from Earth, or maintain and actually grow a colony. So what they're trying to figure out, and by they I mean various different agencies around the world, companies, etc., etc., what they're trying to do is come up with a way to make a colony on Oh, crap. Sorry, one moment. My Word document almost crashed. That's why there was a orange thing there. Anyway, back to the article. Basically, this let's see. A recent paper in the journal New Space has reported that using specific strategies, you will be able to feed more than 1 million people on a colony on Mars, and you'll be able to do it within 100 years. So, just a little bit of background when talking about colonies on Mars, you're going to be talking not in the terms of like a couple decades. Regardless of what Elon tells the media, we're not going to have a colony on Mars anytime soon. So you're looking at maybe 40 years until you see more than a couple hundred people on Mars, and within 100 years, hopefully we'll have a fully functioning, self-sustaining colony, as this article says, with 1 million people. And these guys are saying that using these kinds of strategies, his team's models include 3 main categories of food sources: plant-based foods, which are kind of elaborated down here, where it says beans, tomatoes, and potatoes. Yes, our humble friend, the potato. Edible insects. Some of the squeamish members of you guys may want to not think about it too much, but yeah, insects, a little bit of background. A lot of people are saying nowadays that even for Earth-based food production and consumption, insects are the next big protein source. MK Nicole 2, better to use settlement or inhabitants over colony. I guess you're right, yeah, a settlement. But, I mean, eventually the goal is to create a colony. But yeah, until then it'll be called a settlement. Anyway, yeah, so insects are going to be pretty big protein sources for both developing countries here, hopefully, and settlements outside of Earth's purview. And that's just down to the fact that the protein content of an insect is much greater and easier to create than it is to put money and time and space, specifically, and resources into agricultural meat growing. So cows, sheep, pork, or pigs, etc., etc. So insects are going to be pretty big, apparently. And then you have cellular agriculture. So lab-grown meats, dairy, eggs, those things grown from petri dish farms, essentially. And I know some people may think that that's super gross. I mean, personally, I'm okay with that, just because, I mean, it's basically the most pure form of meat you can have. It's literally grown from stem cells. So you don't have any pesticides or antibiotics or anything like that. Obviously, it'll be the definition of a GMO, or genetically modified organism, because obviously it's lab grown. So you're literally manipulating the genetic structure of cells to grow in a petri dish. So those of you who are skeptical about GMOs, this may not be for you. But we've seen that done here on Earth. A few years ago they were like several $100,000 for one burger. Nowadays they're pumping them out by the few dozen at a time, and hopefully we'll see those come to market shelves sometime soon. So the fact that they're looking into these kinds of strategies for space colonies is kind of cool, and hopefully we'll see some more development about these strategies, because you'll have people going to Mars for years at a time. When Starship comes online, when Blue Origin starts sending people to the moon, you're going to see people trying to sustain their food growth and not have to rely on shipments from Earth, at least for maybe emergency supplies or emergency situations. So I'm super excited about this and hope that some more papers come out and that we'll see more applications like this being tested on Earth. So that pretty much brings an end to our podcast today. Thank you very much for listening in. I know that was a little bit long-winded. Let me see. We've been going for about an hour. So, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm probably not going to set up my live stream for Kerbal right now on this channel, but I'll go ahead and update those update the description with all the links and possibly a link to the Word document with all of the articles and topics. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in, and tune in next week, hopefully for the second podcast of the semester. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff. Plugs, of course. Tamu Seds is hosting our second general meeting of the semester next Wednesday at 7 p.m. In Oceanography and Meteorology 112, room 112. And we're also going to be live streaming that as well. So tune in on either here on YouTube or just come to the meeting. Tomorrow evening, we're going to be watching the presentation from Elon Musk at 6 or 7 p.m. He said, not too sure when it'll be coming online. We'll update you guys on Twitter and Instagram. We have a room booked tomorrow, O&M 112. Same room as the general meetings, but we have that room booked at 5:30. So you guys can come in with dinner or something like that. We can discuss things and talk about the project before the actual presentation comes online. And then, that's about it. So that's done with the plugs. Thank you guys for watching, and talk to you later. Bye.